everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Klay. Klay is the CEO and co-founder of Stability Protocol. Stability Solutions basically is the first tokenless public blockchain, and just the concept is quite innovative. It's a little similar to the way Scale works, and these guys are just gaining ground and getting their footing in this space. Their testnet is live. Anybody can check out their website and perhaps sign up and become a node. So this was a very interesting conversation because this gives a new direction for, I think, many people who are working in the space, also for people who are perhaps thinking about creating another chain for themselves and for their business, basically, without going in the token first direction. So I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Klay. How are you doing today?
Hi, good morning, Terusha. How are you?
Good morning to you too. Actually, we are in different parts of the world. So, I hope you have a great day ahead. Here it's pretty late in the evening, but I'm so glad that you could take out the time to speak to me today.
Happy to be here. Excited for the conversation.
Excellent. So, Klay, for our listeners, would you like to tell us a little about how you got into Web3 and then maybe talk a little about what Stability does and what you guys are building?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So great to be here. So yeah, I'm Klay Nichol, co-founder and COO of Stability Protocol.
Mm-hmm.
We're the world's first free tokenless public blockchain. Prior to Stability, I was at Galaxy Digital, working for Mike Novogratz, where I led the West Coast for Galaxy Digital. My main remit there was onboarding the first crypto investment products to the bank platforms. And so I onboarded the first products to several of the largest banks here in the United States, Morgan Stanley, PNC as example, Goldman Sachs. This was a watershed moment for the industry.
Right.
And it was a real personal milestone as well, because I was in traditional finance before that. I was at JP Morgan for 8 years. I was at Credit Suisse in London, and I was actually a gold analyst at Credit Suisse in Toronto. So I've kind of made the full circle from analog gold to digital gold. And my hope was that I could impact our industry and the blockchain technology by bringing institutions into the space, which is why I left my prior career to dive into the blockchain movement. And I kind of got disenfranchised a little bit when I realized that although we were trying to bring in institutions, I thought that'd be the catalyst for this unlock of utility and really mass adoption. But it was then I kind of realized that there was some real design flaws in the design of public blockchains today that are limiting adoption. And that was really when I reconnected with my co-founder, who I've known for 6 years, Julian Braben, and he has been a visionary in the space. And we were both trying to solve the same problem, because a lot of us got into the space. I know you've been in the space a very long time,
Right.
And we wanted to get back to the main pillars of why we got into this, which was, privacy, security, self-sovereignty, a semantic web of the internet that could actually self-execute. And unfortunately, we just don't have the tools today. And so that's why 14 months ago, we self-funded Stability. We're a team of 13 veteran builders that have been building the last 14 months. And we just launched Stability Testnet, which it brings to life something that no one thought was possible, which is a free to use tokenless blockchain that doesn't have a native cryptocurrency dependency whatsoever.
Well, you've had quite a journey, and I absolutely love the way you said it. You worked with actual gold and now you're working with digital gold, and it's quite an arc. But, I would really love to understand more about how you guys are building Stability. You've mentioned that, it doesn't have any native token, right? It's the first, perhaps, tokenless chain. So how does it really work? And you mentioned that the testnet is live. So can anybody sign up for it to deploy on your protocol?
Yeah, so we have our testnet's live. Anyone could, individuals could run a node if they would want.
Right.
That's totally possible. For the fear of going too deep into the technicals, because I think we can get lost a little bit there, I'll give it like a higher level overview.
Yeah.
And then on our website, there's technical documentation that people can read through if they really want to dig in. And our business, I should have kind of highlighted, is really focused on enterprises and business to business.
Okay.
Anyone can use it, but where we believe we're going to be able to get mass adoption, just like we did when we had the transition from Web 1 to Web 2, is we need businesses to onboard their customers and their users to get to billions of users. And so the problem we have today is that we have 15 million, 15 million monthly active wallets across all relevant blockchains. And that's a data point that you can get from Andreessen Horowitz's website. And that's probably a high number because they're looking for the bias to the upside, not to the downside. But a lot of we often talk about wallets and equate them to users in this space when we know that that's not the case. Because
that is not true. Yeah, I don't believe that stat either, because that cannot be true. Like, as an individual, whenever you're trying out a new application, people make new wallet address, and they try different wallet applications as well, right?
Exactly. So what does that mean? That means that we're probably, if it's 15 million active wallets, we're probably sub 10 million, probably closer to 5 million monthly active users in all of Web3, which is a wildly small number, but a number that we have to look at, not to feel bad about our industry, but to demonstrate that we can do better, and we need to make real changes if we're going to grow this ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And so when we look at how our blockchain works, we've removed, we've completely from the ground up started building in mind with the removal of cryptocurrency dependencies. And so we can do a zero gas transaction where anyone who has an internet connection will be able to use our blockchain for free.
Okay. Wow.
We will be running validators as a public good, which will take zero gas transactions that are submitted from anyone, and we'll process those. Another validator that we're onboarding this week is Google. Okay, so one of our first validators is going to be Google, because they want to be one click away from the world's information in Web 2, and they want to enable one click away from Web 3 for users. And so Stability is the first truly permissionless public blockchain. And I say that because we think of Bitcoin or Ethereum or Polygon or pick your chain as permissionless chains, right? But what are they permissioned by, Purusha? They are permissioned by cryptocurrency.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is a very high bar of permissioning, right? And what that does is that results in significant barriers for enterprises where you have regulatory risk, right?
Yeah.
We're here in the US, and so there's significant regulatory risk, but regardless of jurisdiction, there's not a lot of clarity on regulation, and cryptocurrency, it causes significant barriers. Just right there, you lose a lot of companies. The user experience is very challenging, right?
Absolutely. It's very tedious, right? To onboard a new user, somebody who's coming from Web 2 perhaps into Web 3 because of the same problem, right? Not everybody even knows what a wallet is or how to even acquire those tokens to utilize perhaps certain applications.
Yeah, like to think about it, like Solana, for example, like the amount of money they've spent, like $1.2 billion on drops and that type of thing. that's really considered in there from their perspective and speaking to some of their team members as user acquisition cost, right? And so you take that number, divide by the number of users, and the cost per user acquisition is in the thousand. Like, it's the highest number, right? And so the point is like, you probably couldn't get your parents, it'd be really hard if you paid them $5, would they go through all of the steps? And if you look through the whole journey of getting someone onboarded to Web3, they have to go through, they have to be banked, number one, largely, because they have to have money, wire it to a centralized exchange, buy cryptocurrency, get a wallet, do a seed phrase, like on and on and on. There's a lot of steps there, right? Which is why we have the numbers that we just described. And so the next thing I would say is a challenge, just to go through those, is costs. The costs that even when you think about really small costs, right? Because like, oh, these are sub-penny transactions, but like 1 million transactions on Polygon, for example, would cost you, north of $30,000.
Yeah, and it's getting more expensive, right, by the day.
Yeah, and 1 million transactions is not a lot in Web 2, right? And so, especially when you start thinking about mainstream adoption, like let's get out of our own little small nascent testing zone and start thinking about big brands and big companies or nations trying to use this tech. There's going to need to be billions, and there isn't a blockchain. Not only would there be that would be cost efficient, but two, that could even scale to the size to do that, right? There is no Ethereum, for example, right? Ethereum has 300,000 to 500,000 daily active wallets.
Right.
That is likely sub 100,000 daily active users.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
This is the juggernaut in the space, and we're in a Web 2 terms, we're equivalently at like zero. And the last part on that scale aspect is these blockchains today are optimized for what? They're optimized to drive value back to their cryptocurrency. And their cryptocurrency is great. We're steeped in the space here at Stability in cryptocurrency and the Web3 space. We've all been here. And we believe cryptocurrency has a future, a bright future in the future. But today, blockchain is ready to go, and there's some amazing utility. And these blockchains are optimized to drive value back to their cryptocurrency. How do we know that? Well, think of like Ethereum as a great use case because we know it well. The block space is purposely congested so that there's more tokens burned, which makes a deflationary economy, and the price of the token goes up. And the price of the token is also tied to the security of the network. So it is for interlinked. And so the amount of data that is processed on Ethereum is like 90 gigabytes a year. It's not a lot of data. It's like one DVD or like 9,000 photos of data. And users spent, like $4 billion last year on gas fees, and the prior year spent $9 billion during the bull market on processing that small amount of data, right? So there is a new path that we need to take.
Absolutely. I think it's very pertinent that, something like this comes up, and this is very interesting as well. I would love to dive into your white paper and understand the technicalities of how this kind of works. But yeah, please do go on. Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's a very novel approach. The design of it is very, once you kind of get into the white space of removing the token and you start looking at what is needed as components to build a blockchain, you start to arrive at a solution. And so from a white paper perspective, we have these technical docs, but it's funny. We're often, I'm just going to point this out for the listeners, is that the purpose of a white paper is actually to bring like a brand new like concept, or like most of these are economic concepts, right? Because you have a new token economy, which is what the white paper is built around.
Right.
We don't have a token. And we're using, yes, some novel technology, but it's not a new token economy. So we actually don't even call it a white paper, believe it or not.
Okay, awesome. So, again, right. If you had to explain perhaps this tokenless approach to creating a blockchain, to say, somebody like a 10-year-old, perhaps, how would you do it in a sentence or two?
Okay, yeah. So we are, as a business model, the first software as a service public blockchain. That might help. And if you're a business or a builder, but let's start with a business. You're Nike and you want to issue an NFT of every sale of shoes to that user, right? Millions of transactions. That is something that they would just license our node software, and they can run all of their transactions in on their own node. And we have a very distinct feature on Stability, is that we have something we call internally as a private mempool. Most blockchains have public mempools where all the transactions are in there. That's where you get MEV and there's all that type of stuff going on. But more importantly, you don't have privacy because blockchains are inherently public, which is another challenge for enterprises. So that Nike can run their own validator, their own private mempool, have all of their own transactions, and we can then we can run those transactions for them. Now, from a scale perspective, because we don't have a token and we're not congested, we can increase our block size. There is no limit. So today, our block size is roughly 300 million gas. To put that in perspective for your audience, Ethereum is at 30 million gas per block.
Right.
And so we're 100x the throughput today of Ethereum. We're about 10x the throughput of Polygon. And that's using the exact same node infrastructure that Ethereum uses, a simple like $1,000 a year AWS instance,
Right.
to run that type of throughput. And the reason we can do that is because we're using a consensus mechanism. Like, really, at the end of the day, the real core question when you're just like, how does it work? It comes down to consensus at the end of the day.
Okay.
And we're using a consensus mechanism that is highly robust. In our world, in Web3, or I said our community, we often think of proof of work and proof of stake as being like the stalwart, most tested consensus mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
In the spectrum of consensus mechanisms, these are fringe. Like when you talk about mainstream consensus, the area of academia of consensus is so large. It's probably bigger than blockchain in general, right? We've been working on consensus mechanisms for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
So we're using a consensus mechanism that's similar to JP Morgan, to Google, these large data centers called Raft, or some similar to Paxos, not the stable coin, but the consensus mechanism. And these are highly, highly robust, highly efficient. And so this is how we can scale our network. Really, there is no limitation on scale of our blockchain now. The really limitations end up being, it sounds funny, but it's like the speed of light and distance, really, because any validator can just simply increase their node instance, their validator instance, to whatever level they need to run the amount of transactions. So they can run billions of transactions a month, and that not be a very big cost. And more importantly, there's no volatility or variability, which is highly important for companies. They need predictability in costs.
Right. Okay. So tell me something, for anybody to be running a node for your protocol, are there any prerequisites? So do you have like a checklist?
Yeah, so I can share with you, really what we're looking for is partners that are differentiated and we want a diverse validator set. So we're going to have 100 validators at launch. As I said, we just did testnet like a month ago, and we're now looking at the various verticals where our go-to-market. I mean, that's probably something we can dive into, is like, what does a tokenless blockchain unlock, right? And I know that you work on applications and utility applications, so I think we can have a deep kind of conversation on what's possible there. But so we're looking at gaming, we're looking at fintech, we're looking at Web3 brand loyalty, we're looking at Web3 ticketing, and we're looking at bringing on validators in each one of those various areas, because at the end of the day, we want to have a very diversified both sector and geographic diversification of our validator set.
Right.
And I think that's just like a really thoughtful way to do it. We're really looking for partners who see, and bringing on these partners, really more not looking for them, but like only willing to bring them on if they really see this vision, because this is another difference between us and every other validator in Web3. You have to flip the economics on their head. Most people will run a validator assuming that they're going to make money. You have to, as I said earlier, we're a software service. You have to pay to be a validator of stability. And why would you do that? There's two reasons. One, you're a enterprise looking for a scalable blockchain solution. Our monthly subscription is $5,000 for the largest corporate for a month. However, for individual users and builders, individual users and builders today, it's free. Like, there is no cost. You can just build applications today for free, and users can use those. So that's a huge win for innovation and allowing people to just build. So that kind of gives you a perspective of how that works.
Yeah, so this is, the one thing that comes to mind is obviously that, you're trying to be as inclusive as possible, and that is wonderful. But this does lead me to two questions. One you've kind of answered in part, but tell me a little about, how would you perhaps encourage developers to build on your protocol without a financial incentive? Because see, the problem right now, and this I think is a problem, by the way, I feel this is a problem in Web3 currently, that anybody who wants developers to build on their protocol or to become a part of their ecosystem, there's always, even for just creating a community, there's a lot of financial incentive involved, like in terms of airdrops and whatnot, which I think is not sustainable. So how do you intend to perhaps move past this challenge? I understand that you have an entirely enterprise arm, which is where you will derive your revenue from, but how are you going to get more perhaps users, and are you even targeting like to get more users, and how do you get developers to build on your protocol?
Yeah. So on the developer front, I would say that that's often a question we get, is like, how are you going to incentivize? You don't have the token.
Yeah.
And I would say, how well have the best chains done at attracting developers, and how has that worked on usership? We went through the numbers, and I would say, and you kind of said it's not only not sustainable, I would argue that it doesn't work, like full stop. And I would say that for us, we're not really focused on attracting Web3 developers and trying to pull them away from other chains. That's not really what we're focused on. We are actually focused on, attracting just developers in general, more Web2 developers, because we're looking for Web2 utility, like Web3 enabled, but Web2 like developers who can come in, and our SDK will be in languages, JavaScript, in very accessible languages where they can build something that has real utility, right? And it's not just building based on speculation. So let me bring that to life for you. Like, one of the reasons why Google was interested in onboarding, I said yes from being one click away, like altruistic for Web3 and letting Web3 grow, but on Stability as the first permissionless public blockchain. And I say that because just like the internet, you now have a public blockchain that is available to anyone, right? For free.
Yeah.
You we can build a Google add-in, right? Where
Hmm.
you can go to a Google Suite, go open any document, create a document, go file, save to block.